You know, there are a ton of different crankbaits out there. I'm talking crankbaits that dive deep, crankbaits that dive shallow, crankbaits that have a whole lot of wobble, and some that don't hardly wobble at all. But never have I found a crankbait that can truly do it all in shallow water until I found this thing right here. This funny looking piece of plastic right here is the coolest crankbait I have ever had the chance of using, and in today's video I'm going to explain exactly why you need one of these in your tackle box. My name's Tyler, and let's talk about it. Well, how's it going, folks? Welcome back to TRF. My goal right here on this channel is to help y'all become better bass anglers and catch more fish. So if you want that, hit the subscribe button. So this bait that I have right here in 3 different colors and 2 different sizes is the Strike King Hybrid Hunter. I do work with Strike King, but this video is not necessarily sponsored, like they're not paying me to make this video, but I have fallen in love with this crankbait, and I think you will too. Now, in order to make the information in this video flow to the best of my ability, I'm gonna have timestamps listed at the bottom of the video on that playhead down there that you guys can actually click and scroll between the sections of the video that you might want to learn the most about, or stuff that you might want to skip through. So be aware that is down there to help you guys, of course, navigate the information of this very, very cool crankbait. Now, of course, the first thing that you notice about this bait is that it's really, really weird looking. But before we talk about the design structure, the body size, the bill shape, I want to talk about the history of this specific lure and talk about the name that it used to go by before it was the Hybrid Hunter. A professional angler named Todd Castledine, who has worked with Strike King on the bait design side of things for a long time. He has a video on the exact detailed history of his first usage of this bait. I will leave that linked below, because he used to be sponsored by a company that made this exact same mold before Strike King had it. And if my memory serves me correct, the lure company was called Strike Pro. They were a European-based company or a saltwater company, and their hard baits weren't even designed for bass fishing. But Todd looked at this bait called the Strike Pro Bubba, that was the old name, or the Big Bubba, and he thought to himself, I wonder if that bait could work well in East Texas over shallow grass, specifically on lakes like Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn. Well, it turns out it worked unbelievably well, better than any other shallow crankbait out there, and so the guys in East Texas, especially Todd and his buddies, were keeping it real hush-hush. The Bubba worked well, and they didn't want anybody to know about it. Well, eventually the company Strike Pro went down, and thus the mold for the Bubba was no longer being made. As a matter of fact, it was kind of lost for a while, and so the Bubba was a very well sought-after lure in the East Texas community. 6 Sense Lures made a copy of it called the Swank, but of course they didn't have the exact same mold as the Bubba, so it did not have the exact same action and fish catching ability as the original bait did. And so as Todd started working with Strike King, I don't know how they found the mold, but eventually they did. Strike King bought it from Strike Pro, and now it is the Strike King Hybrid Hunter. So that's some of the history. Todd talks about this bait more than any others he has ever helped design, which really speaks volumes to how effective this thing is and how much he loves it. And I'm telling you, I love this thing too. And y'all who have followed my channel for a while know that I don't just do product reviews because somebody pays me to. I do product reviews because I truly believe the product is revolutionary and will help you guys catch more fish as it has helped me catch more fish. And that is exactly what the Hybrid Hunter has done for me. So I want to talk about the key 3 to 5 design features that make this crankbait so special before we talk about how to retrieve this thing. So again, all the timestamps will be listed on the playhead in case you want to skip ahead and learn something new. So the first thing that definitely catches your eye about this crankbait is the incredibly weird shaped bill. What exactly does this accomplish? First, this bill causes the lure to hunt, as the name implies. Hunting means that as a crankbait is retrieved back to you, whether back to your boat, your kayak, or back to you on the bank, it doesn't just wobble in a small little area all the way back to the boat in a straight line. It has a tendency to, whether it's the retrieve is sped up or slowed down, or it hits some kind of cover or the bottom, it then veers, it deviates off of that center retrieve pattern, which causes it to kind of have an erratic hunting movement as it makes its way back to you. And my theory as to how that is accomplished is actually due to the completely flat face on the front of this bill, similar to a knuckleball. In a sport like soccer, when a player kicks a ball with 0 spin on that ball is moving through the air of course with no spin, no air movement around the ball, which oftentimes causes that air to make the ball move in really, really weird ways. That's why I think the hybrid hunter hunts side to side erratically, because water hits the front of that bill, and because the bill is literally straight to the water as you're pulling it this way, it doesn't have a chance to dive any deeper. We're going to talk about the diving depth here in a second. It doesn't have a chance to dive and wobble that bait. It literally is being like pulled through the water, which again, depending on the speed, depending on the cover down there, on your retrieve speed, that's going to add more or less hunting ability to this crankbait. The bill on the hybrid hunter allows this crankbait to get to its max depth relatively quickly, but also stay there and not dive even deeper, even while ripping or speeding up your retrieve. This bait moves horizontally, does not hardly move vertically due to the angle of the bill. One problem that almost every shallow running crankbait has, I'm talking square bills, I'm talking flat sides, lipless crankbaits, is that when you go to rip that crankbait out of grass or to pull it over a stick or a log, is that oftentimes it actually dives deeper, even just slightly, when you rip that bait because of the added force onto that bait that kind of forces it deeper for just 1 second, and that results in a lot more snags and doesn't allow you to fish the lure very cleanly. The hybrid hunter does that job so well. No matter how hard you rip that thing, even if you are ripping it through the water with your rod angled down, this bait will continue to move horizontally, which is why it is so good around shallow grass, especially a big old grass flat, where if you make a long cast with a square bill or a lipless, and you get snagged in the grass early on in the cast, and you can't free your bait from that grass, your cast is basically done for. With this bait, even if you get lodged in the grass, you give it one good rip and maybe a fast reel, it clears that grass and you are up and running again, ready to take advantage of the rest of that strike zone. So even though this is a crankbait, it is an incredibly weedless shallow water lure, and you'll see some fish catches in this video. I caught fish on a crankbait in like 6 inches of water at some points today. It is very, very effective at staying clean in shallow grass. The last feature that makes the hybrid hunter so good around shallow cover, especially shallow wood as well, is that it is incredibly buoyant. I mean, I've used a lot of crankbaits in my life, and they all float, besides a few of them that are suspending crankbaits, but never have I found a crankbait that floats as fast as the hybrid hunter does. That is due to the incredibly thin-bodied wall here, a lot of air in this cavity, and whatever the body shape is here, it causes this thing to float. I'm talking like a foot every second. And so when you're cranking it down there and you hit a piece of grass or you hit a stick, instead of having to hope that your crankbait makes it through there without getting snagged, you literally just pause your retrieve, let it float up for 1 or 2 seconds, and then continue your retrieve, and it's gone like this, where this is the log, it's going, it hits it, floats up, keeps going. This, of course, leads to less weeds on your hooks, less stick-ups get stuck on, and way more time in the strike zone with this bait. And I think fish get so used to seeing a square bill crankbait hit a stick and bounce off, and of course, yes, that can cause a reaction strike out of those fish. I don't think very often they see a lure hit something and float straight up, and then continue to go again. It could give those fish an entirely new look that they haven't seen. And the last design feature that I want to touch on before we go into where to fish it and how to fish it is that this is actually a flat-sided bait. And so it actually kind of more rolls as opposed to kick side to side, which again gives those fish a look in extra shallow water they definitely haven't seen, because you can't throw a flat-sided crankbait like a balsa wood bait in super shallow grass without having one that's designed for those situations. And most of those are designed for rocks, not wood and grass. So we've talked about the word hunter in hybrid hunter, but let's talk about the word hybrid. This bait truly is a hybrid. Todd Castledine says that he doesn't even consider it a crankbait. I don't know if I'd necessarily go that far. I still think it is a crankbait. It's a hard bait with 2 treble hooks and a bill, regardless of how funky shaped it is. But due to its incredible buoyancy, its ability to be fished over shallow cover, and its ability to not get washed out, to not burn out the faster you retrieve it, so you can either retrieve it really slow or really fast. There's literally no top speed for retrieval on this lure. It is incredibly versatile and can be thrown almost anywhere shallow. And I want to talk about one pond situation before we get into where to throw this, and that is your classic shallow pond that has vegetation growing out with, slightly increasing depth the farther away you get from shore. I'm gonna say that's the majority of ponds that most people fish out there. Shallow vegetation that eventually tapers out into a grass line that eventually gets to an open water situation. Most crankbaits in ponds are not really the best to throw besides a lipless, because if you're digging into the bottom, you're gonna get too much grass, too much wood, too many leaves. But this crankbait works perfectly for that, because let's say you cast it out there, you reel it in open water for a little bit, it hunts in open water, it's effective there. Then as soon as you get to the edge of that grass, of course, it's effective around shallow vegetation. But the problem with most crankbaits that are good up to that point in ponds when you're bank fishing is that they'll get to where the grass starts to slope higher up as the bank gets closer to the angler right here on the bank. And so you start to get more and more grass, sticks, and leaves onto your hooks, therefore decreasing the efficiency of that cast. And so you'd have to retrieve that crankbait back incredibly slower and slower as you get closer to the end of your retrieve. But with this bait, you can barely slow down your retrieve, and it will go from its max depth to going horizontal a little bit higher, and then horizontal a little bit higher until you're all the way back at the bank. And so you can effectively use this thing for the entirety of your cast, not have to waste a third of your cast because you're not in the right strike zone, you're getting too much grass, sticks, and leaves on your bait. This thing is an incredibly effective bass boat bait, kayak bait, and bank fishing bait. So don't think because you're in a shallow pond that you can't throw a crankbait. This is the one for you. So the retrieve for the hybrid hunter. Some folks say that you can't reel it fast enough, and some say that you can't reel it slow enough. And so I think just like with any other lure out there, whether it's a reaction bait, whether it's a worm, whether it's a topwater, you gotta find what works for you and for your body of water. I have had several days fishing this bait now, hardcore, and in my experience, the faster I go with it, the more erratic it is, and thus the more it gets, hits sticks, hits grass, I can rip it out, the more fish I catch. But I bet you there are situations where maybe you got a cold front in the fish, it would take them a long time to swim out to deeper water, and so they just kind of hunker down in that grass, and maybe fishing it slower is going to be more effective in those situations. I don't really have an answer for you there. You got to find out what works for you. But like I said, it can be fished effectively, both extra slow and extra fast. Now, where to throw the hybrid hunter? Of course, like I said, around shallow grass is best, then around shallow wood is second best. Can you throw it around rocks? I mean, it's a crankbait, and crankbaits work great around rocks, so I don't see why not. But I throw it so far mostly around grass, and so I'm going to talk about that real quick. Now, what type of grass do you throw it around? Is it going to be eelgrass, going to be hydrilla, going to be milfoil, going to be cabbage? In my experience, you want to find the grass that's most rippable, the one that you can actually rip your hybrid hunter out of, similar to areas you'd throw a vibrating jig or a lipless crankbait. And so grasses like eelgrass and cabbage are not as easily rippable. They snag onto treble hooks more and don't quite tear as easily with force as hydrilla, milfoil, and coontail do. I'm sure I'm missing some other ones that you guys have in your lakes and ponds, but lily pad stems, not the best for the hybrid hunter because treble hooks love to get stuck in those things. So I would find grass, like I said, that is rippable. I'm not saying you can't catch them around eelgrass on this thing, but I have fished it around eelgrass and I had more trouble getting it unsnagged than I did with hydrilla and coontail. So that right there is the hybrid hunter. You guys will see tons of fish catches this spring on my channel using this thing, and hopefully as I travel the country, I will continue to use it as it is not just a shallow springtime pre-spawn lure. It can be used all the time. Now let's hop on the water, show you guys tons and tons of fish catches using this exact bait right here. That power pole. Oh, hey, what's going on, buddy? Oh, we got it choked. He ate it right at the boat, and he has it down his mouth. Talk about how you want him to eat a crankbait right there. Oof, boys and girls, look at that. Sheesh. See you, buddy. This is where I lost my 7 last time. Gosh, there it is. There it is. That's a big one. Oh my gosh. It's not a 7, but it's biggest one so far. Right on the edge of that grass. See it there? All right, yes, sir. Let's go. On the old hunter. Popped off the edge of the grass. As easy as this lure is, and got him. There's one. He's crushing it though. Gosh, this guy crushed it. Beautiful fish. Hybrid hunter getting the job done. Let me tell you something. Whatever stock hooks we got running on this bait, they're sticky. Oh gosh. Yeah, right off the rock. Holy cow. I guess this thing works on rocks too, not just grass. Beautiful fish. I mean, like, chunky dunk. Look at the proportions on that boy. Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Gosh, that one ate the snot out of it. Gee. Oh, my gosh. That one smoked it. Getting both hooks in his mouth.
Spicy.
They're not going to get off when they do that. They're in here, boys. There he is. Gosh, dang it. Ah.
Right there, right? That was crazy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They're biting the old hunter.
Like that. Right?
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Real sticky little hooks on a real nice bass.
You got the left side of those reeds? I'm gonna take it right.
Yeah. Gosh. Holy cow.
Hungry.
There's my signature gosh. Got him. It is not just a grass bait, folks. Bring it in. Yes. That's how you want them. I mean, ideally you want them to eat it down the mouth, but roof of the mouth is second best. Oh, no way. He got stuck. A snag for Adam.
Yeah, I was checking Instagram stories in the morning. Saw your post.
There's one.
Put it there? No.
Yeah, that one's for sure there. That's a nice one.
Bring him in. Bring him in. Bring him in. Bring him in. Yeah. Okay,
My
buddy.
collectible is breakfast is
I look forward to getting some pictures with all the...
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
oh yeah.
Oh, there we are.
There's a little flat of grass back there. Just got to tick this over the top. Let's go. That's a beautiful, healthy fish. Just look at how green that thing is. I love it. There should be a few down that, yeah, down that stretch there. Oh, there's one. There's one. Beautiful. Beautiful. And he bit in like 1.5 feet of water. So you can throw this thing anywhere. I love it when they get the 2 hooks in their mouth. Because even if they're not hooked very well with either one, you still got 2. It's kind of your channel.
Yeah, Ron Tyler's on the one we did this
Oh, jeepers.
Yep. Doubled up.
Doubled up.
Yep.
Bring it up in here. Yours might be a little bigger than mine. Ah. See you, buddy.
Gotta get a taste of it all.
Oh, rock.
It'll all come back.
There's one. Oh, yes. Beautiful. Man, he chunked it. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Hey, Bob.